Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to learn empirical rule with the help of an example. So let's get started. Here is the example. For a 4-unit class like statistics, students should spend average of 12 hours studying for the class. A survey was done on 20 students and the distribution of total study hour per week is a bell-shaped with the mean of 13 hours and standard deviation 2.6 hours. Use the empirical rule to answer the following questions. So we need to answer these 3 questions. So here in general, for a 4-unit statistics class, students should spend an average of 12 hours. Okay, this is on general for all students. So this is the population mean. But here a survey is done, okay, with 20 students. So here we are talking about 20 students. So these 20 students is the sample size, n equal to 20. And the distribution of the total study hours per week is bell-shaped. So when we perform that study, the number of hours spent is found to be bell-shaped or normal with the mean of 13 hours and the standard deviation 2.6 hours. So here this mean is the sample mean x bar and the standard deviation 2.6 hours is the sample standard deviation s. Now we are asked to use the empirical rule, and we already know that the shape of the distribution is bell-shaped. So first, we are going to sketch the bell-shaped distribution here to analyze this. So here is my bell-shaped distribution. And for this distribution, it's a normal distribution with the mean of 13 hours and standard deviation 2.6 hours. So normal distribution with the mean of 13 hours and standard deviation 2.6 hours. Now what we do is we'll go up to 3 standard deviation up and 3 standard deviation down. So if I go 1 standard deviation above and below, so if I go 1 standard deviation up like this and also 1 standard deviation down like that. Okay, so when I go 1 standard deviation up, in the middle we'll have the mean, that is 13. And then when we go 1 standard deviation up, it is 13 plus 2.6, which will be 15.6. And when we go 1 standard deviation down, it is 13 minus 2.6, which is 10.4. 10.4. And what we know from the empirical rule is within this 1 standard deviation, okay, within 1 standard deviation, we'll have 68% of the data. We'll have 68% of data within 1 standard deviation. That means 68% of the students spend between 10.4 and 15.6 hours. So the answer to this first part, 68% of students spend between how many hours? So it will be between 10.4 and 15.6. So 10.4 to 15.6 hours. 68% of the students spend between 10.4 through 15.6 hours studying weekly. Similarly, if we go 2 standard deviation up from 13 and 2 standard deviation down, let me show that. So if we go 2 standard deviation up, we'll be somewhere there. 2 standard deviation down will be somewhere there. So if we go 2 standard deviation up, 13 plus 2.6, we get 15.6. If we go one more time, plus 2.6, that will be 18.2. So this value will be 18.2. Similarly, this value on the other side, 13 minus 2.6, again minus 2.6, that will be 7.8. That means if we go 2 standard deviation up, it will be 18.2. If we go 2 standard deviation down, it will be 7.8. And what we know from empirical rule is within this 2 standard deviation, we'll have 95% of the data. 95% data lies within 2 standard deviation of the mean. So 95% of the student spend between how many hours? The answer will be between 7.8 to 18.2 hours. So it will be 7.8 to 18.2 hours. So they spend between 7.8 and 18.2 hours. Similarly, to answer the third part, let's go up to 3 standard deviation and down to 3 standard deviation from the mean. So if I show that here, 3 standard deviation above the mean will be somewhere there. Let me draw it properly. So it should be somewhere. Okay, let me use different color to draw it. Okay, it will be somewhere here. And then on the other side, it will be somewhere there, here and here. So 1 standard deviation up by adding 2.6 to 13, 15.6. 15.6 plus 2.6, 18.2. 18.2 plus 2.6, that will be 20.8. So this is 20.8. Similarly, on the other side, 13 minus 2.6 is 10.4. 10.4 minus 2.6 is 7.8. 7.8 minus 2.6 is 5.2. So if we go 3 standard deviation above mean, it is 20.8. And if we go 3 standard deviation below mean, it is 5.2. And according to the empirical rule, within the 3 standard deviation of the mean, we'll have 99.7% data. 99.7% data lies within 3 standard deviation of the mean. So in this case, it is between 5.2 and 20.8 hours. So to answer this third question, 99.7% of the student is spent between how many hours on statistics each week? That is between 5.2 and 20.8. So that is between 5.2 and 20.8 hours. So this is how we can use the concept of empirical rule to solve the problem. Key note here, within 1 standard deviation of the mean, we'll have 68% of the data. Within 2 standard deviation of the mean, we'll have 95% data. And within 3 standard deviation of the mean, we'll have 99.7% data. That is the fundamental idea about the empirical rule. So that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you find this helpful.